ValveTime.net.
Hi, and welcome to a ValveTime Spotlight exclusive. Today we're going to be talking about the development of Snowplow, the special map and game mode originally set to be included with the end-of-the-line update for Team Fortress 2, released in December 2014. Unfortunately, the map was ultimately cut from the main update, leaving only the 14-minute short film and several items. Despite this, we're going to be covering the map's long and somewhat troubled development, hopefully shining some light on what could have been. So, let's get on with it. As an update created almost exclusively by the community, Snowplow and its unique game mode were created by community-level designers YM and Frozen of TF2Maps.net. After privately working through a few gameplay prototypes with Valve, YM enlisted the help of many established faces from the TF2Maps.net community to help privately test new versions of the map as they were created. Alongside numerous mappers, model makers, and other fans, our very own Nick joined YM and Frozen through almost every playtest of over 40 different versions. During early beta testing, the private testers were given permission to record their play sessions, so long as nothing was released before the end-of-the-line update itself. Meaning, Nick has since recorded several terabytes and tens of hours worth of testing footage from nearly every version of the map, starting at Alpha 4 running all the way through until the final variant you can currently play in-game today. Since we didn't think the gameplay footage would be interesting on its own, we decided to create this short Spotlight exclusive episode to give you a peek into the testing and development process of Snowplow, and how the map evolved over time without making you sit through what could be hours of random unedited gameplay. While the final version of Snowplow involves Red Team attempting to destroy Blue Team's train bomb using a series of linear traps, this wasn't always the case. Prior to the start of the pseudo-private testing, YM and Valve experimented with several trap prototypes, including one which used the man versus machine tank model, speed, and health attributes to determine the train's attributes. Once caught in a trap, the tank would slowly be shredded by a series of saws, eventually destroying it if the adjacent control point wasn't captured in time, much like the final version. YM is quoted as saying as Valve mentioned this version wasn't very exciting as players were less engaged while the tank was taking damage, quickly transitioning the map into the wind-up, strike, repeat trap system used in the map ever since. This new system, along with some accompanying audio and visual cues, help make the instance of damage more of an event, allowing players to easily identify when the train has been struck and how long they have to defend or assault it. While the original exterior of Blue Base and the positioning of the first capture point may seem similar to those included in the final version of the map, early versions of the map featured largely different layouts and gameplay mechanics, such as the train originally being diverted along a number of different tracks and alternate routes based on team performance at the previous capture point. Should Blue successfully capture a point prior to the train's slow arrival, it would be diverted down a separate, alternate path away from Red's stationary trap, maintaining the train's current level of health. Should Red defend the point, the train would be taken down a longer route towards the trap, which would then continually damage the train before either it was destroyed or Blue captured the next point to free it. Should the train remain active when it reached the final, the game would temporarily shift into a King of the Hill-like variant, forcing Blue to capture and hold the final point while the train passed through a long line of consecutive traps in order to prevent each one from hitting the train. Should the train pass through all the traps without being destroyed, it would slowly and rather undramatically collide with Red's base, destroying it in the process. As you can tell by the capture point HUD used at the bottom of the screen and the lack of any real feedback throughout the map, the early version of the game mode was extremely confusing for new players, who found it difficult to understand why certain capture points were passed and others needed to be captured at different times. The final, which featured just the right amount of traps to destroy the train from full health, was considered too much of a spam fest as all players in the game dedicated themselves to a single capture point, providing a not particularly rewarding or fun experience, especially if Blue were able to successfully bring the train to Red's base at full health before having all progress lost to a single King of the Hill style control point. Feedback from Valve employees following several playtests also deemed the map too confusing and not exactly rewarding, prompting the first of a number of total game mode and layout overhauls. In order to simplify the game mode somewhat, the alternate routes were taken out, meaning the train would now stop at every capture point while being continually damaged before Blue were able to capture. While easier to understand and navigate and generally more fun to play, the now straightforward layout still suffered from many of its predecessors' problems, as most areas were simply closed-off versions of the stationary trap points previously used. After several unsuccessful attempts to fix the existing layout, such as reworking the final and splitting the map into 2 separate stages, TF2Maps.net mapper Frozen, who had helped organize many of the private tests up until that time, was brought on to help YM rebuild, effectively taking over the reconstruction of Stage 2 while YM focused on Stage 1. At this point, all of Stage 2 was entirely removed from the game and rebuilt from the ground up, while many areas of Stage 1 were also replaced, minus the spawn area and first capture point. While it still lacked any kind of visual detail, those who played the map during the public beta stage or since its release will recognize this basic layout, as it changed relatively little since the creation in early June. The most major changes to this version of the map mostly focus on the introduction of new doorways and flanking routes, new buildings for cover, and slight positional changes to the second control points in stages 1 and 2, both of which shifted around quite a lot. Given that the map now featured a more streamlined, straightforward design heavily focused on the concept of having a single train attack, feedback from playtesters both old and new was instantly more positive, claiming the flow of the map had improved and that it was now far easier to actually understand what was happening and what players were actually required to do in order to help or destroy the train. One major criticism that persisted from this version even to the present day largely related to the map's core concept, which had definitely devolved somewhat since its original inception as a more unique multi-route layout. As we're sure many earlier playtesters will remember, one of the main phrases thrown around described the map as being like payload with control points, commenting on the train's restricted path and its controlled speed. While usually used as a piece of negative feedback, the concept of the map being payload with control points was certainly true, but not necessarily a bad thing, as the much larger amount of positive feedback continued to show. With the layout coming along nicely and the need for more dramatic overhauls slowly becoming less and less likely, the team was able to put more effort into the map's detailing and appearance, which up until this point had been largely restricted to plain developer textures and the odd detailed model. In order to make the map's visuals stand out, McVinnie decided the map should take place after the short film and reflect its progression from Blue's base in the snowy mountains down to Red's more sunny alpine base below. This explains why the map's 2 stages feature very opposite themes, one focused on snow, gorges, and large mountains, while the other is more flat, dry, and sunny. As the map's detailing continued to steadily progress and several other minor tweaks were made to help the map's layout, the then private test became less and less popular as months dragged on, eventually making it a rare occurrence for a test to take place with more than around 8 to 10 players. With interest among existing playtests waning somewhat, gameplay sessions became far less balanced and harder to extract useful feedback or data from, slowing the production of meaningful gameplay improvements to a crawl. Despite falling playtesting numbers and a need for more useful feedback, Valve did not allow McVinnie and the map's development team to place it inside the newly introduced Manco Beta Maps program, released on July 8, 2014. The real reasons regarding why the map was not allowed to be included have never been fully revealed to the public, but it's believed Valve is not willing to add non-official community-made maps to the program, instead keeping it exclusively for their own in-house maps and experimental game modes, such as Robot Destruction, Asteroid, and Cactus Canyon. As Snowplow's playtester numbers continued to naturally diminish over time throughout July, it was decided the pool of potential players would need to be opened up somewhat in order to receive accurate and actually valuable data regarding the map's still problematic pacing and layout. On Tuesday, August 5, 2014, the Update development team organized the first pseudo-public playtest, available only to players within the TF2Maps.net Steam community group. The method of uploading new versions for the larger TF2Maps.net group for testing proved extremely successful at providing useful data given the number of new and experienced players who were able to join and begin understanding the game mode and map for themselves for the first time. The method worked well for multiple versions up until August 12, 2014, when an unknown user uploaded a large number of screenshots of the map to the TF2 subreddit along with various bits of information pertaining to the game mode's design. While McVinnie and the team originally attempted to have all visual evidence of the map removed from Reddit, it quickly became obvious a media blackout of sorts was impossible. This then prompted the team to bring forward a wide-scale public testing idea scheduled to begin around a week later before uploading a slightly modified version of the leaked unfinished map to both TF2Maps.net and the TF2 subreddit, allowing any and all players to download it and play it for free. The only real changes present in this publicly released version were aesthetic, mostly related to the storyline of the end-of-the-line short, including a modified train model and Blue's destroyed base on the horizon. By making the map, known as the first beta version, frequently playable on a number of TF2Maps.net owned European, United States, and Australian servers, Frozen and YM were able to collect far more data than they ever had in the past, helping to massively boost the rate of development and iteration. It's worth noting that every version prior to this had been referred to as being in the alpha stage of development using the _A suffix, even though the layout of the map was more or less confirmed months prior to it being moved into beta. This was a deliberate move by YM and Frozen, who wanted to keep the progression of Snowplow secret from prying eyes on Reddit, Facepunch, and the Steam forums, who were able to witness playtests taking place using Steam's View Game Info option. The suffix was only updated to the beta version _B once the map was leaked and the wider public were able to see and play the map for themselves, removing the need for secrecy. Over the period of around a month, up until September 20th or so, 8 total beta versions were developed and periodically released, each using feedback from the previous versions to improve on problematic areas or pacing issues. New buildings were added, protective gates were put into place, and the speed of the train was dramatically increased, alongside a number of other rather huge changes, slowly transforming the map into what we know today with the release of the end-of-the-line update. Between September 20th and the update's eventual release on December 8th, 2014, no new versions were released to the public, likely as a means of rebuilding much of the hype that was lost after the leak in mid-August. As we now know, the map was quietly scrapped after disapproval from Valve on November 13th, 2014, nearly a month before its planned release. This, of course, reflects much of their earlier feedback, which was relatively negative regarding the map's flow and balance. As shown by the final version highlighted by the map's creator, Frozen, the map was more or less complete, with only a few pieces of minor polish required in a few places. That more or less concludes everything we have to say about CP Snowplow and what eventually made it into the end-of-the-line update for now. It's been great to have a somewhat exclusive look at the development of one of the community's most anticipated updates, even if the content we spoke about for over 10 minutes never even saw the light of day, at least officially. If you're interested in playing Snowplow for yourself, we'll have included an extra link in the video description where you can download the final version for yourself. Now we want to extend an extra special thanks to James McVinnie, YM, and Frozen for letting us take a peek behind the curtain. If you found this episode to be any way enlightening and would like to catch more of our content, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and to check out our previous episodes of ValveTime Spotlight exclusive. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.